last night we got all the fiberglass work, taping done under the deck, on the underside of the deck, which I had upside down on here, and then before the epoxy could set up, we remounted on the bottom here to try to make sure that it's going to fit. And we got a couple of areas where it feels like we may have to do some trimming on the deck to get it to match flush. Like right here, we're pretty good. I did use the saran wrap method to just try to tie the whole thing together and to hold the deck in place so that as the epoxy dried, it would allow the deck to mold to the right kind of shape so that we know that it'll fit down pretty snugly on the side panels. The shear panel will match up with that. And I'm going to cut the saran wrap off of here, and hopefully my little trick with masking tape worked and we don't have any issues. And I'm going to be careful here that I don't scar the wood. So far so good. The saran wrap worked pretty good once you got the first wrap around, and I even just took it and ran it underneath there and just pulled it up all in a wad and put it over, and then looped the saran wrap roll on it. What did I do with that thing? It's over here. This was actually a pretty handy tip that I picked up from somebody who just got one of these from it's like a packing, like if you're moving, just packing saran wrap. And just rolls right off this thing. It was pretty slick rather than going through and trying to retie this with copper all through here, the copper wires, because this is kind of a moment of truth. I don't think it's not stuck down on here at all. There's a danger of gluing it to the, well, now see that part feels like it glued a little bit. Oh dear. Alright, if that's all there is, that's good. I put this masking tape on here. It actually tore it just a little bit, which is just fine because it didn't tear the wood. So, okay. You can kind of see, now see this is floppy because I have all the supports out of it. But we can see all the fiberglass work that we got done underneath here. So that's good news. It does feel a little flexible. We may be able to bend it enough to get it to join up with the different parts of this as we do this. Now I believe the next thing we'll do is line up the rear hatch cover and cut out the after hatch. I don't think we're going to put one in the front. It's such a small area up there that we're kind of deciding that maybe it's more trouble than it's worth. There's such a big section back here in this after area. The other thing that I'm noticing with this, though, too, is, let's see if I can scoot that up there. The other thing I'm noticing here is that this after bulkhead is not coming up to the top of the underside of the deck when it's laid on here. And you can kind of push it down, but it almost looks like it creates a little dip in here, which we definitely don't want. So I think what I'm going to do is use the temporary deck form that we had previously mounted in here as we put this whole thing together. And I think what I'm going to do is it's the same, it matches up with this, it's the same size. I think I'm just going to put it in there and raise it up just about an inch or so and epoxy it in here on the back side of this. And it should help get a watertight seal in there and make it easier to put a fillet in against the deck. So the other thing I believe that will help me do is actually maybe gain a little more by being able to bring these sides down to match up with the side panel here. So anyway, we'll I guess we can remove the masking tape. I was amazed at how well it didn't stick. Now I'll probably have a hard time getting it off of here. No, not at all. It's fine. So anyway, it's coming along. just a little bit every day. We'll do some more video as we make further progress. Thanks for watching. I want to take a minute and talk about what I'm doing here with the hatches. I've got the deck wired down at least enough to keep it from moving, and I've got it about where I think it's going to need to be. And so the next thing that I got to do, I'm going to see how we go with this aft bulkhead. I think I'm still going to put that extra little piece in there. Then when I'm doing this to cut out this hatch, imagine how my nerves are frayed with this when I'm going to take the jigsaw to this after I've carefully put this whole deck together. Anyway, you use the aft hatch spacer. I wrote that on this piece as I cut these all out, sanded them. So I know this is the right one, aft hatch spacer. And the directions say to go ahead and wire it down so in the holes that are pre-drilled in here so you know where it goes. Now, I wanted to make sure that it was centered on the back of the deck here. So, again, I use this thing all the time. This is my wife's little sewing measuring thing. So I took and I measured from the straightest part of the curve there over to the side and got 1 1/4 inches and got it on both sides that way so that I know that it's centered. Then I thought, it says draw on the inside of the ring, so I did that, and then I was like, you know what, when I go to take the jigsaw in here, I want a nice smooth cut, and I don't want to rip this wood at all, because this inside winds up being the hatch cover. So we're going to use this piece once we cut it out. So I put masking tape down all the way around there, and then drew my line on the inside of the hatch ring. Oh, and the other thing, I cut 2 short pieces of like 3-inch pieces of copper wire to wire this thing down. Well, that doesn't work. We'd have to drill 2 more holes. I ended up having to cut a long piece and then run it all the way through, so it's just 1 piece holding that down. There's the other 2 little pieces that weren't long enough. Okay, we'll see what this looks like after we cut it out. Okay, so now we've cut out the aft hatch cover. And I took a few minutes and rewired this lamp because I noticed that when I had my line on here, even with as much light as is in here, the saw was actually causing a shadow to where it was hard to see my line. And so I'd saw for a little bit, and then I would move the lamp to where then I wouldn't have any kind of shadow. I could see exactly where I was. Just took my time, stayed right on the line, and got a really nice clean cut. And the other thing is we put the masking tape around the edges, and that kept from getting any kind of like little breakage in the plywood or little splinters. And then I'm just going to leave that tape on there for a little bit. I marked this as forward and aft so I know which way this thing goes, because this is the actual hatch cover. So anyway, I put this one little board in here when I was cutting because I was about 3/4 of the way through here, and the whole thing looked like it was falling in, and I didn't want it to break. So the biggest thing I can say at this point about doing this hatch work is just go slow, take your time. So anyway, more progress. So the next thing you do is you get your aft hatch sill. This is what the hatch actually will lay on when it's in there. And then you got your aft hatch spacer. Now this is what we drew our line inside to make our deal. So we want to make our hole. So we want to make sure that we got this going in here the same way that we had it on here when we cut out the hole. I had put a little tiny pencil line right there. That's on the center line where I know that that's the edge that matches up. So then I took it and I just made it up with the hatch sill and just try to make sure that the way I've got it on here is about the best fitting for what we can do, and kind of played with that. I got all my clamps all ready to go, and I've just mixed up some thickened epoxy using the Total Boat silica, and which is this little tub right here. And it's nice. It's easy to mix in, and doesn't have a lot of little lumps and junk in it. Here's the batch I've made up. So I need to get busy and go ahead and put this together. So I'm gonna coat all of these surfaces and then slide it up under there, and then clamp it on and let it dry. And there we have the after hatch all clamped in. It's got the spacer in there and the sill. My little clamps weren't quite big enough. They're all sitting down there. So anyway, I took it apart once after I had all the epoxy in there and got it all over myself, but it gave me an opportunity to clean up that squeeze out, and so we'll let it sit and see what it looks like tomorrow. Good night.